Hello, all. Welcome back to the Brighter Black Futures podcast. I'm your host, Bisa Dobson, and today we've got a great show for you that's all about healthcare inequities. Particularly, what we're going to discuss with our guests is how healthcare inequities can impact Black families and what you can do to avoid that happening to you, or at least reduce the impact of that happening to you should you have to deal with the healthcare system. It's an important topic you don't want to miss. So thank you for being here, and let's get right into it. Now it's time for the uplifting segment of the podcast, a part where I share a quote that resonates with me and hopefully inspires me and inspires all of you, because that's why I share it. So let's get into today's quote. Now, today's quote isn't as bright and cheery as most of the quotes I share here. It's a little heavier because the topic we're discussing this week, healthcare equity, is a bit heavier, but I still think it can be inspiring, or could be considered inspiring, because it's raising awareness of an issue that I think is important and has been long-standing for too many marginalized communities. And this quote is from Martin Luther King, and you will often find it online in a much more watered-down version, but I want to give you the hard-hitting real quote. And the quote is, "Of all the forms of inequality, injustice in health is the most shocking and the most inhuman, because it often results in physical death." Definitely hard-hitting, not necessarily on the face of it uplifting, but why it resonates for me, and I think it's important, is that it gets me fired up and wanting to make a difference and do what I can to ensure that when people who are marginalized are taking steps to improve their health, trying to access healthcare system, they gain the best care they can, and advocating for themselves and know what they need to do to make sure they get that done so they can access the best health possible. It may not always be the top tier health, but whatever is possible for them in that moment. And of course, that in this itself speaks to inequalities, but whatever they can access in that moment, that they're going to get the best care possible and support they need to live life at their healthiest and best. So that's why I want to share this quote, because it ties into the theme today, of course. And even though it is not the most yay uplifting on the face of it, it makes me feel like ready to go, which in a way uplifts me. And I hope that it puts a fire in your belly too, in wanting to learn more and make a difference in this space, because it's a long-standing problem of unequal access to health for marginalized communities. The Black community, for example, Indigenous communities really have a hard time getting the care they need because of, structural prejudices and biases and racism. It's not okay, and we all need to do our part. And I'm going to say that quote one more time again to make sure the fire is in your belly as we go. Again, from Martin Luther King, the quote is, "Of all forms of injustice, injustice in health is the most shocking and the most inhuman, because it often results in physical death." And that is not okay. Not even a little bit. And now it's time for the Black History Moment. And today we're going to tell the story of a woman who is out here fiercely advocating for people with disabilities who are marginalized and racialized, and lifting her voice as a woman who has autism spectrum difference and making a huge difference in the world. And her name is Morenike Giwa-Onaiwu. Now, Morenike Giwa-Onaiwu is a PhD. She's a researcher, educator, and parent of 6 children who are living with autism spectrum difference. And she is dedicated in her work to raise awareness of both autism and HIV. And her work focuses on the intersection of these two issues with respect to race and disability. Now, Morenike's journey began when she herself was diagnosed with autism spectrum difference, and her symptoms were often misinterpreted due to racial biases. This fueled her passion and desire to raise awareness and understanding, and her passion shines through in a multifaceted approach to her work. She is the co-editor of the anthology All the Weight of Our Dreams, which highlights the voices of people of color living with autism and emphasizes the need for diversity in the discussion around autism and its impact. Also, Morenike is the founder and principal of a nonprofit initiative called Advocacy Without Borders. Through workshops, outreach programs, and resource development, Morenike's organization seeks to dismantle HIV stigma, empower neurodivergent individuals, and provide important resources and information to marginalized communities about maintaining and improving their overall health. To learn more about Morenike and the great work they're doing at Advocacy Without Borders, visit advocacywithoutborders.org. And now you know. Hello, everyone. We're back at Bright Black Futures podcast, and today I have a lovely guest, Nerissa Hutchinson. And I didn't say her name when I first mentioned her in the podcast, but she has been discussed in other podcasts. I think it was episode 6, when myself and Karen Robinson were talking about autism for the first time. I mentioned a woman who was a fierce advocate for her daughter, and Nerissa is that person. Her daughter is Fallon, and Nerissa has had to advocate for Fallon's entire life to make sure she got the care she needed to treat for autism. She's on the autism spectrum, and Fallon also has what they call juvenile idiopathic arthritis. We're going to talk more about those things, but today we're going to talk about a parent's perspective of having to help support a child through the healthcare system when they have multiple conditions and facing massive and consistent healthcare inequities. So welcome to the show, Nerissa.
Thank you. Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And how she and I connected, so serendipitous. We did the podcast, and a client of mine knew someone who knew her, and that's how we got connected. So the amazing things that can happen when you start talking about a thing publicly, and suddenly you make introductions that help to create new things and new connections. All right, so I'm going to pull up my questions here, and let's get right into it. So for the sake of my audience who doesn't know about juvenile idiopathic arthritis, which was formerly called juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, so it's now JIA instead of JRA. What is it, and what are signs that parents might notice or be looking out for if they suspect that their child has this condition?
Okay. Yes. So JIA, which was formerly called juvenile rheumatoid arthritis, and the reason why they changed the name is because it's for youth and for individuals under the age of 16. It's because it's a juvenile rheumatoid arthritis is actually not a kid version of the adult disease. The term juvenile arthritis is used to describe all the joint conditions and the kinds of how it affects teens and children. And so unlike adult with arthritis, it's ongoing and chronic and can last, their lifetime. For children and youth, they can outgrow it, but the disease can affect their bone development as they're growing. So basically, JIA it's an autoimmune disease, and where the body mistakenly identifies some of its own cells as foreign, and it really attacks itself. And so it thinks its cells are foreign, and it attacks healthy cells and tissue. And so the result of that is inflammation, which is like it can be redness, heat, pain, and swelling.
All right. And what kind of symptoms did you first notice in your daughter? Because I'm sure you had no idea about it when she first had symptoms. So what did you notice, but didn't know what was happening at the time that has now turned out to be her JIA?
For my daughter, it would be walking, and for as far back as I could remember, from when she was very, very young, she started walking. She used to always say, "Oh, it just feels, my knees feel funny, my legs feel funny." We'll be walking, and she'll just fall on the ground, and she said, "Oh," she'll joke and say, "Oh, my legs give out on me." She would say that it feels like her limbs feels like an elastic band. At one point, they thought she had I can't remember right now, but it's an illness where limbs are a lot of gymnasts has this, where that's why they're so flexible and can do all those twists and turns and tumbles. So at first they thought she had this illness because she was extremely flexible. My daughter is able to pick up both legs, put it around the back of her neck, twist her arms in unusual positions, and she could dislocate her shoulder, put it back. Very flexible. So initially they thought she might have had that. That was another diagnosis in itself, because most individuals do not live past the age of 40. So I lived with that for a number of years, thinking my daughter was not going to live past the age of 40. When she was finally diagnosed with this illness, it was such relief, believe it or not, from what I know. But it's swelling, tender joints. There are times, one of the things I've come to learn was she was always tired, extremely tired, feeling fatigue and rundown. she would always get high fever, which was something we didn't realize. We just thought she gets sick quite easily. Her appetite was erratic. Sometimes she doesn't want to eat. Like she would, oh, I'm not hungry. She'd go on for days, not being hungry. Another thing she struggles with was rashes. She'd get rashes all over her body, in between her joints. Would think that it was because of clothing or something she ate. And another thing we've come to learn, should complain about blurry vision at times. And so these are all the symptoms that we have now learned that are symptoms of JIA.
Okay, that's quite an exhaustive list because it could be so many things based on that.
Yes.
So it's easy to probably easy to confuse the parent what's going on, and then for doctors to diagnose probably very, very challenging as well.
Yes, definitely.
For better or worse, has two conditions that are hard to diagnose and easily misdiagnosed.
Exactly.
Yes.
So with the JIA, which was diagnosed much later, also along with the autism. So she was battling two things that we weren't quite aware what these two things were. And so it was great once we got the autism diagnosis. At first they thought the symptoms of JRA was because of the autism. So but the pain and the discomfort and the fatigue, after much advocating and fighting, we were able to get the diagnosis for JIA.
And what you said there just now segues well into my next question. So you've had to advocate for your daughter and literally fight in hospitals and healthcare spaces to get attention for your child because you've been dismissed as a parent. As somebody who's not in healthcare, maybe they think you don't know what you're talking about. And then of course, also there's the whole healthcare inequity piece. There's a bit of racial bias as well. So based on your experience of having to advocate for filing against those challenges, what are three things you really love to see happen in the healthcare system to kind of mitigate inequities moving forward?
I one of the things I say to parents that I work with now and support with various issues around their health, parents or caregivers, I say document everything, write everything down. When each time, after a while, I was walking with a binder. So when you visit a doctor, make sure you document what is said, what is heard. Do your own research. Go online, ask questions, ask as many questions. Even when you do your own research and you see your doctor, ask them about what you have uncovered. Bring your own evidence and concerns to them. The next thing I would say is most important for me was to seek allies within the system. It's very, very important. I find for me, I would just call. I would just talk to anyone. It got to that point where I just didn't care anymore. I would listening to a podcast or see something in the newspaper or something I read or at a conference, and I'd reach out to the individual. And I want to talk to them. I want to find out what is this? What is that? I've met so many people along this journey, doctors, scientists who are doing this work. And I would get my information and I would take it to my doctor. Look, this is what I learned. This is what I found out. Find supportive professionals, use patient advocates to help you. And one of the most important things is to be assertive. Don't be afraid to speak up and speak out. This is your child. You're advocating for your child, and advocacy is not always pretty. It's not cute, but it's at the end of the day, be assertive and be firm. And if you have to, escalate within the system if necessary. And don't be afraid to do that. And if you can't do it alone, seek out individuals to help you. I always say it's so nerve-wracking, it's exhausting. Bring a friend, bring a family member, have them speak on your behalf, and you have the right to do that. And know that you have those rights. So those are some of the things, and this is from our perspective, from professional perspective, listen to the parents. They're around their children or the individuals that they take care of 24/7. They do have valuable information that can support your findings or your own knowledge. So listen to the parents, ask them questions, do not dismiss their concerns. They are real, and so that's something I always say professionals need to do. Listen to the parents. And really, when they come in with the concerns, do not dismiss them. Step outside of your textbooks. And especially speaking as a Black woman and from for a Black community, we present differently. When we go see a doctor, a lot of times, because of the inequities and racism and anti-Black racism within the system, we are not as comfortable in being open to you because we've seen where the system has failed us. And so it's really, really important to be aware of your own biases within the system and your approaches, even the way you question and ask the questions to Black individuals.
All right, so I want to recap what you just said for the health professionals, especially. You said listen to parents because they with their children 24/7. Don't be dismissive. So step outside of your textbooks and think outside the box and like really hear what they're saying. So you not dismiss what they think is happening. Look at other ideas. And the last
Yes.
piece was recognize that somebody who looks different from you, if you're a healthcare professional, or looks different from most people in the space, may have a hard time being there, may not speak as freely. So it's important to be aware of that, be cognizant of that, maybe ask questions and give time for the answer to questions in a different way.
Exactly.
So I want to talk to you about autism spectrum disorder or the difference. People say autism spectrum difference. Let me use that terminology.
Yes.
And the stigma around it for lots of
Yes.
families, especially immigrant families, they don't feel comfortable. So what would you say to anyone out there who is uncomfortable talking about the fact that their child has is on the spectrum, maybe not helping them get the care they need because of it?
You know, I for many families, and I do work with many families. My background is I'm a child and youth care practitioner. I'm currently in school. My goal is to be a counseling psychology. I mean, a psychotherapist. Sorry. And one of the things I always say to families, and I work a lot with Black families, um, you know, getting the diagnosis for autism because there's so much stigma around it. And for us, there's a lot of stigma within our own community because of lack of knowledge and understanding of what autism really is. And I usually say that getting that diagnosis that your child is on the spectrum is associated with a lot of fears and anxiety, and it's overwhelming. But I always say that autism is not a reflection of your parenting or your child's potential. It's simply a part of who they are, just like other parts of their unique development. And so understanding and supporting their unique needs will help your child to live their fullest life and to help them to thrive. And so it's basically it's just your child think differently. Their brains are different from ours, but they are beautiful. They are our children. Many individuals have moved on and have become scientists, doctors, and come back into the community and support the community, athletes. And we're learning more and more about autism, and more individuals are speaking out about autism. It's not a death sentence. And so, in a lot of cases, I do understand the system, unfortunately. One of the things that, for me, I kept hearing is that my daughter wasn't diagnosed until she was 13 years old, even though I suspected from long before she was autistic. No one listened. We heard, why is you doing this to your parents? Why are you doing this to your mom? Don't you want to go to school? What's wrong with you? We heard that. And so for getting the diagnosis, one of the things I kept hearing is Black individuals present differently. I kept hearing that so many times. And at one point I said to a doctor, please stop saying that to Black parents. If you all know this, that Black parents present differently, how about you change to look at how can we support Black parents with the knowledge that they present differently?
Pardon me, so I want to make sure I got that clear. Doctors and healthcare professionals believe that children with autism who happen to be Black present differently than others. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Is that and that's not factual, I imagine. Is it? Like that's I've never.
I from personally, I think because the reason why that belief exists within the medical profession, I believe it's because a lot of times these things are observed once a child goes to school. The school system is it's when you start to notice the differences in behavior within the school system for most Black youth. It's not, schools are not designed, no, let me rephrase that. Schools are designed to do exactly what they set out to do. When it comes to Black children, we all know it's a pipeline to prison. It's a pipeline to go into this certain trade. It streams Black youth into these systems. Unfortunately, that's the reality. So when a Black youth or a Black child presents or have autism symptoms, immediately they're being defiant. That's the first thing that they what is wrong with them? The parents are called in because they look at the behavior. In a lot of cases, I believe more training for teachers and individuals within the school system, healthcare providers, in recognizing that the child is not being defiant. There are other issues. A lot of times the behavior is looked at, not the cause.
Okay, so basically, now that I'm hearing you say that, it might be more than the fact that they present differently. It might be because Black children aren't diagnosed, so they enter the school system, and then they're labeled as behaving badly.
Exactly.
That keeps the difference relative to other children who might be diagnosed before they hit school.
And the interesting thing is, you may have two students in the classroom with the same behavior, but the Black child
is
treated right and treated differently. And so that impacts the behavior of the child even further. And so, and for the families and the parents, you hear everything from a deficit perspective. And so it kind of takes away from the fact that let's look at other things. What could that be? So of course you're streamed into a totally different direction. And by the time that they start to look at the child's behavior, it's a lot of times it's too late. And so for my daughter, who got diagnosed at the age of 13, because I kept advocating, I kept saying, my daughter is not, no, this is not. And then eventually the road for me to get diagnosed was for me going into my doctor's office and said, I'm not leaving. There's something wrong with my daughter. My daughter is having tics. My daughter had tics and stims. And so sticks and stims is where she was constantly just shakes and her hands, and she has I'm going to use the word Tourette's, but I know it's the inappropriate word to use because but she would basically in the classroom, for her it was swear words uncontrollably. And so with that, it's that could be looked at, oh, your daughter is being disrespectful. But my daughter she was so embarrassed of it, she couldn't help it. And so with her tics and stims and having all those other issues that she was dealing with, that we were dealing with, that could be looked at as, oh, she's just being rude, she's being disrespected. Why can't she just sit down? Why is she moving around all the time? Yet for a non-Black child, that behavior, oh my gosh, let's figure out what's going on. These symptoms match that of, as opposed to a Black child, oh my gosh, they can't sit down, send her, go to the office, go to the principal, your parent is called in, your child have behavioral issues. Same symptoms, totally different diagnosis.
It's amazing how universal that experience is, that when somebody of color, often Black, I think Indigenous people also fall into the same.
Yes, very much so.
Really a problem and criminalized, and if it happens to somebody who is lighter skinned, it is something we should help them with and support them to go through the disease, right? And I think about the difference between the handling of the opioid crisis versus the crack epidemic, like something very, very different situations, but very similar things as far as the drug infiltrating a community and how it's responded to, right? So same thing in this case. Very
same
sad.
Thing. Yes, very, very sad.
Very sad in its consistency. Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah,
very much so.
Part of the Sawubona Africentric Circle of Support. We've been so for a while. It's an organization that supports families with children who have disabilities. Could you tell us more about what the services that group offers and how people can access it for services, or maybe join as well?
Definitely. The name of the organization is Sawubona Africentric Circle of Support. And Sawubona is a Zulu word that means I see you. and it's about recognizing the worth and dignity of each person. For Sawubona, basically what we do, we are an incorporated non-for-profit organization, and what our goal is to educate and to empower individuals and also organizations. And so to empower Black caregivers and families to use their voice and create change and systems to better connect and support, and for systems and organizations to connect and better support Black families. And we also to educate families on services, resources, expertise. We also offer expertise, and to them we bring in the organization. We connect with other organizations to support our families, and so that they're better educated in navigating the various systems. Basically, Sawubona is an incorporated non-for-profit organization, but there's the Black Parent Support Group, which is it's a disability group, started a group for Black individuals that are with disabilities, which was started in November 2020 by Sharon and Clovis Grant. And their goal was to provide a safe space for families of African descent to come together, share resources and expertise and support, and to help one another. Because one of the things, being a Black family with a child with a disability, they're very, 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 very limited spaces where you feel comfortable in basically sharing your ideas, looking for support, looking for questions. And so this BPSG was started to help Black families and individuals of color where they can come meet other families, just be ourselves, and where we're not stigmatized. You know, feel as if you say something, you know, oh my God, oh, I can't believe you say that. We get each other. You know, we're Black families. We understand. When you feel like that and you say, I feel blah, 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 it doesn't mean that you're going to do it. It's like, I got you. I get it. You know? And so when we're there to speak and talk to each other, we can come as ourselves and be ourselves. And so, we understand that families with special needs individuals have many, many challenges. And there's a lot of a lack of emotional support. We face isolation, and we're there to look for resources. So Sawubona has gotten funding to support a lot of the families. We start in the summertime between July to August. We take a break, but we're from September till June. And we have bi-weekly meetings online for families to connect and just to share ideas. We bring in support, resources, individual to talk about what are available, everything, all the information that you'll need, from how to educate, from basically how to navigate support, what's happening within the government, new ideas, everything. So we're there to share ideas. And Sawubona is there. Basically, we get the funding, the resource, the support to help. We have basically we have our annual picnic, which every year in June. Don't quote me on that. It could be July next year, but I'll give you all the information to connect with us. It's usually at Centennial Park, and we bring all the families together. We sit around, we have games, dances, music, entertainment, food, food that is donated. There's gift giveaways. Families just come, have a great time. Their kids are there as well. Have a wonderful time. Be yourselves, connect with each other, just have fun. We also have our annual Christmas party every year at Taibu. And we have entertainment, dance, music, foods. Get dressed up, come out, have a wonderful time. And so we have this available for our families, and for all the families. We'd love for you to. It's basically BPSD is a volunteer-run group, and also to connect with us, we are at www.sawubonaACS.org. That's SAWUBONA acs.org, and also for the Black Parent Support Group, bpsgroup2020@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Black Parent Support Group.
Awesome. Thank you for that. I'll also put that in the show notes. So if you didn't get that now, you'll see it in the notes for the show as well. So you can connect with her. Right, thank you so much for that. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience about juvenile idiopathic arthritis, autism spectrum difference, or anything about healthcare inequity or promoting people moving through spaces, healthcare spaces as well, but before you go?
Definitely, I'd love to. For families, your child is beautiful. Your child is wonderful. Your child is loved. For all caregivers, the individual you're working with, give them love, support, understanding. Love them. They are unique. They're amazing. Reach out to us, reach out to Sawubona, reach out to BPS Group. We're here to help. We're here to support. Um, I am also the SEAC Special Education Advisory Board member for the Toronto District School Board for Sawubona. So reach out if you're having any issues within the school board, anything that you'd like to bring within your school, that reach out to me. I will give my information, so you can put that in the show notes. Reach out to me with any issues that you're having navigating the systems or concerns, anything. Reach out. I'll be more than happy to help and to support you in every way. Again, Sawubona, BPSG, we're a wealth of information. Reach out to us. We're here to help. We're here to support. And yeah, just stay strong. You've got this.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, for being with us here with us today, Nerissa. I so appreciate you and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Right. That's all we have for you this week. Thank you for watching and listening. We so appreciate you and look forward to seeing you again next week. Till then, take care and be well. Bye.